encourage you to go to soteriology101.com. Help us spread the news of God's love and provision for every man, woman, boy, and girl. Listen to me. Go and type in the word predestination or the word election or biblical election or soteriology, biblical salvation into your Google search engines. And you will see in the first 2 pages, Calvinist after Calvinist after Calvinist resource. You got questions? You know, if you've seen that one, got questions? That's a Calvinistic resource, by the way. Most of the big internet behemoth websites that are out there on Google are giving Calvinistic answers to these questions. No wonder the resurging of Calvinism between the ages of 16 and 35 are just astronomical. Why? Because anyone between those ages, if they want to know the answer to a question, they don't go to a library and look at the best sources that are available from both sides. What do? YouTube, Google. What is YouTube and Google going to tell me? Well, since Calvinists have coalesced around this particular soteriological doctrine and are really good at explaining themselves and getting out there on the internet with all kinds of memes and bashing anybody that disagrees with them and putting any scholar, kind of gaslighting any scholar out there that says anything other than they do, then what are they going to get on YouTube or Google when they go and search for it? They're going to find Calvinistic answers. And guess what they're going to believe? They're going to believe what the Calvinists tell them that Romans 8 or Romans 9 means or Ephesians 1 means. And they're not getting a balanced approach. They're not getting an education. They're getting an indoctrination. They're not learning both sides and judging them out. They're not seeing both the duck and the rabbit, as we've talked about in the picture. They're just seeing one. They're being taught, well, this is obviously a duck. And anybody that questions whether it's a duck or not, they're obviously just not reading the Bible. They're just not very smart. They're just not very bright. You just haven't studied the Bible as well as we have. And the only way that we're going to start getting the word out is if we start promoting the scholars and the people from our perspective that teach the alternative, and I think the right view of election and the right view of predestination, as we've talked about on our program dozens and dozens of times. I'm not afraid of any of the passages of Scripture that are brought up as proof texts of Calvinism. I've not avoided a single one of them. I have dozens of videos talking about the main key passages, proof texts for Calvinism. And I've had debates on the subject and willing to continue to have debates and discussions on the subject. We're not afraid of these verses. We're not afraid of talking through them. And there are better explanations than that which is being brought by the theistic determinism of Calvinist theology. And so I'm pressing you to learn from the best scholars from the other perspective. If you think the alternative to Calvinism is God looking through the quarters of time, like he's on the timeline way back in the past, he's looking through the quarters of time to see who's going to believe in him, and he picks those people. If you think that's the alternative, if you think that's the best alternative, then I'm just here to tell you, you don't know what you're talking about. In love, you have not been educated properly. You are in a little microcosm bubble of other Calvinists telling you what the alternative is instead of you being a good Berean and learning the best scholars from the other perspective. We've got to get this word out, and we've got to have more people supporting and helping us to get this word out. On the Calvinist side, you've got 9 marks. You've got the Gospel Coalition, you've got Together for the Gospel, and the Founders Ministry, and about a dozen other ministries that are coalesced around a Calvinistic soteriology. Now, does that mean they don't do other things? Of course not. Obviously, Grace to You Ministries and Ligonier Ministries with R.C. Sproul and these other ministries, they do other things. They have other teachings and other things that aren't just around Calvinistic soteriology. But I guarantee you, all of them coalesce around the concept of sovereignty as being God decides who will decide to follow him or not. God is the one who determines, predestines who will be a believer or who won't be a believer. It's coalescing around that central themed doctrine of tulip soteriology. And that's why Together for the Gospel, you have Presbyterians and Baptists and Charismatics and all kinds of groups, as long as they affirm that one little point, that God is the causal, decisive cause of whether you believe and trust in him or not. As long as you affirm that, they will look past all the other doctrinal distinctives in order to come together for what they call the gospel, a renewal of the gospel, a revival of the gospel, they will call it. And that's what they're attempting to do within the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest Protestant denomination, my convention. This is what's happening around the globe right now. Is there are a lot of people buying into what you just heard from John MacArthur, what you're hearing from the popular internet kind of Calvinist online right now. This is what's becoming the new thing. This new resurging of ideas of Calvinism. And I'm just here to say, Calvinism over the last 500 years or so has resurged about 4 times. Even Al Mohler, who is a leading Calvinist among the Southern Baptists, he even says this in one of his talkbacks, where he says Calvinism has resurged about 4 times over the last 500 years. Why? Why? Why does it surge up and then die back down? Well, either it's a type of systematic that can't sustain itself because of its logical inconsistencies, and that's why it surges up and then dies back out, or God has ordained for it to surge back up and die back out. That's only 2 options, because if Calvinism is true and God ordains all things that comes to pass, then he must ordain even the dying out of this own systematic. And ask yourself, why has this argument not even existed within Eastern Orthodoxy? Go back and listen to my interview with Dr. Ken Wilson, one of the leading scholars of St. Augustine, that has authored a dissertation from Oxford on Augustine's influence within the Western Church. And you'll see very clearly that he introduced in the line of the Western Church this controversy from his Manichaean Gnosticistic background of understanding God from a more theistic, deterministic mindset. And it has introduced within the church a very controversial way of looking at God that causes all this mystery and confusion. And it's simply not necessary. In love, I simply say, there is a better way, my friends. And we can help spread this truth and help spread the news of God's love and provision for all people. There at Sociology 101, you'll also find a classroom link for Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary. If you're looking for a higher education, I encourage you to consider trinitysim.edu if you want more information. And if you can support us, please click on the support link, become a one-time giver or a patron of the podcast. We would greatly appreciate it. God bless. See you next time. Goodbye.
Thanks for attending our online university classroom. Remember, this is a listener-supported ministry, so please consider becoming a patron of the podcast by donating online. Join our team and help spread the word. For more resources, books, and articles from Professor Flowers, or to learn how you can support this ministry, please visit www.soteriology101.com.